global look, about 10 pages long, and his wonderful U.S. work as well, with John Sylvia helping out there, and of course the view of China from high frequency economics. Lisa, what do you see on the west side? I'm waving, Lisa. Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. It's very Upper East Side. There's like two different, for those of you that don't know this, Lisa and I live in two different orbits. I mean, Mars and Venus doesn't even do it justice.
That's fair. I would agree with that. I'm looking down at some shuttered restaurants, the sort of gates over them, the metal blocking them. And honestly, it's a different New York City. You don't hear the jets overhead that were always flying. You don't see the traffic on the streets. It's quiet.
It's quiet and the air is cleaner. You can see, it's not that you can see farther, but you can see farther clear. And Lisa, I was thinking, is this like back to 1920? No, it was polluted then. I mean, are we looking at a skyline, a clarity of air that's like 1830 or 1840? I don't know. I haven't read that article yet.
I have not read that article. Yeah. I am, though, thinking about the 1920s and the pandemics and the tenements. Yeah. Sort of, we're all back there. That's sort of what it feels like in some ways.
That's exactly right. The density here, folks, is absolutely critical. We say special good morning to the distance of Brooklyn, New York, hardest hit in New York. Stay with us, coast to
The happy family of three were about to welcome a new member. That's right, they were finally getting a dog.
Buy on eBay, dog bed from £12.
First, they had to make a few adjustments.
Sell white rug.
And prepare the kids for the reality of owning a pet.
Buy biodegradable poop bags from under £6.
Everyone instantly fell in love with Little Rocky. Unfortunately, Little Rocky fell in love with a cushion. Buy, sell, eBay.
Delivery costs may apply.
Coronavirus is affecting us all. During this difficult time, we're helping critical workers to make essential journeys by public transport. So, from Monday the 23rd of March, TfL will be operating a gradually reduced service on our network. Some stations will be closed so that we can keep key stations open. Night tube and night overground services have already stopped running, but our extensive night bus service will continue. The Waterloo and City line is now closed. We will keep you updated as our services change. Search TfL.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day, March 25th, 1972. UCLA men's basketball wins its sixth consecutive national basketball title.
UCLA has won its sixth consecutive NCAA basketball championship, and pandemonium reigns as delirious UCLA players are congratulated by their Florida State rivals as well as their fans.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, click on Sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C's change.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stock futures are fluctuating, giving up some solid gains from earlier this morning as investors await details on an economic rescue plan in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Investors showed their optimism yesterday, pushing the Dow up more than 2,100 points or 11% for its biggest day since 1933. Target has dumped its full-year sales and profit forecast that it delivered only 3 weeks ago, underscoring the difficulty that retailers face in navigating the unfolding coronavirus crisis. Target will also stop accepting returns and stop packing items in reusable bags for fear of transmitting the virus. Online activity is surging as people remain at home, but that is not translating into a surge in ad revenue for the big tech companies. The slump in economic activity is crushing several industries that have been big buyers of Google and Facebook ads, including online travel agents, automakers, restaurants, and retail. Facebook says many of its services are being used more, but they don't run ads. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Our relationship with Asia is simple. Find the most experienced journalists.
These countries will need each other more and more in the future.
Let them gather the best data and experts.
Let's get to Singapore now and our guest.
Then bring everything they find straight to you.
Let's talk about where you are. There's quite a lot of headwinds there too.
Actually, it's not simple. It's just better. Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. We have to get it right the first time.
We always talk about the losers in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
Once we get through coronavirus, it's very supportive and very stimulative.
Central banks themselves got caught hostage by markets.
Finance.
OPEC Plus is at war with itself.
We know we can create America's energy independence again.
Investment.
The market's anticipating the rate getting very close to zero in fairly short order.
Volatility is back, so that's going to make for more cautious trading.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, Bloomberg Surveillance, another hour here in an extraordinary time, an extraordinary day. Yes, legislation in Washington earlier this morning, markets up big, and then they pulled back, beginning to look at some of the fine print as well. Far more important than that, the national and international state of our virology and medicine. Spain with grim news this morning out of the United Kingdom, the shock that the Prince of Wales has been identified as having the COVID-19 virus. And Paul, in the United States, again, just looking at how governors are adapting, including Governor Cuomo putting in 2,000 beds at the Javits Center with Mayor de Blasio.
Absolutely, Tom. I mean, Governor Cuomo's really, taken a national profile here and pushing forth some aggressive moves here. And that's because New York State and New York City seems to be the epicenter here in the United States. So aggressive moves are absolutely required, and he's making them.
Well, I'm here in Manhattan, folks. Paul Sweeney out at his 3,000-acre horse farm in New Jersey. And between us is a team of people helping Bloomberg Surveillance just go today. One of those looking at the individual stock stories wrapped around a weaker dollar. Oil with some stability, gold after that huge day pulling back, and futures up and now relatively flat. It's one David Wilson. David, what do you have today?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, especially with the travel-related shares. But we just saw a headline that Occidental Petroleum has a pact with the activist investor Carl Icahn. It's named 3 new directors to its board as part of this agreement. I mean, Icahn has had a stake in Occidental since last year. He opposed the takeover of Anadarko Petroleum, which has really hurt Occidental lately, given the collapse in the price of oil. And we're seeing Occidental shares higher, along with the group to some extent. Nonetheless, the stock, after the deal with Icahn, up about 10% in early trading. And so now we turn to the airlines. I mean, passenger carriers are set to receive $50 billion in loans and loan guarantees as part of that economic rescue plan. So you're seeing their shares really rally in early trading. American's up 20.5%. Delta's up 18.5%. Southwest up 10%. And United higher by 16.5%. And Boeing's up 17%. It isn't just that the airline stocks are rallying. It's also that the plane maker plans to restart production of the 737 MAX jet by May, according to Reuters. The report cited unnamed people familiar with the matter. Now, the 737 MAX has been grounded for more than a year after 2 fatal crashes. We're seeing the cruise lines move higher. They're climbing for a 5th day, even though the industry, by all accounts, hasn't been cited specifically in the rescue plan. Nonetheless, you've got Carnival shares up about 13.5%, Royal Caribbean higher by 17%, and Norwegian up about 25% in early trading. MGM Resorts up 18%. The casino owner cut a $32 million pay deal with former CEO Jim Murren. He left the company last week to lead a Nevada task force on the coronavirus outbreak. We're seeing the automakers advance in response to this rescue package agreement. You've got Ford Motor, especially higher, up 12.5%. General Motors and Fiat Chrysler up about 4.5%. We're even seeing the oil stocks rise beyond Occidental, even though crude oil itself has slumped in New York trading after a rally yesterday. ExxonMobil's up about 5%, Chevron up 3.5%, the oil services company Halliburton up 15%. Now for some company-specific moves. Nike's up 10.5%. The athletic wear maker's revenue for the fiscal third quarter being analyst's highest estimate in a Bloomberg survey. Nike's online orders climbed 36% as the coronavirus led shoppers to stay home. You've got BlackRock up 3.5%. The world's largest asset manager will handle 3 bond buying programs on behalf of the Federal Reserve. Those plans focus on corporate debt and on commercial mortgage-backed bonds from government agencies. We heard from Yum Brands. The shares a little changed in early trading, maybe up 0.5%. The owner of KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell expects this quarter's sales to drop by a mid to high single-digit percentage. Its stores open more than a year. Yum said it sees the coronavirus hurting business even more in the coming quarter.
Yeah, David, what have you seen there? I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, what is the food industry saying? What's their visibility? Are they into May?
Well, possibly longer than that. And the ripple effects are already happening. Cracker Barrel Old Country Stores down 4.5%. The restaurant owner's taking a fiscal third quarter charge of $133 million on its Punch Bowl social chain. Punch Bowl's lender foreclosed on the business after all its locations were shut down because of the virus.
David Wilson, thank you so much for those individual stock stories. And, of course, he'll be with us through the day here on Bloomberg Radio with a big move in the market yesterday, less so today. We turn now to the virus and particularly to medical technology. Paul Sweeney.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. One of the many questions around this virus and the response is, the biotech industry, the healthcare industry, how will they react? Will they come up with therapies? How quickly? Jeannie Bauman is a medical research reporter for Bloomberg Law. She joins us now with that story. So, Jeannie, give us a sense of what the biotech industry is saying right now about what they can do in terms of therapies and vaccines.
Thanks for having me. So they're actually moving pretty quickly. Gilead says that they should know by next month, actually, whether or not their antiviral, which remdesivir, which they developed during the Ebola outbreak, could be a potential therapy for COVID-19. And there's already first-in-human studies for a potential vaccine that NIH developed with Moderna.
So Jeannie, we've had a couple of therapies that are already in the marketplace. One, a couple for malaria, for example. Is there a sense that those can be repurposed for this virus, or is there something absolutely totally new that needs to be developed?
So a lot of what they're looking at are repurposing old, or not old, I should say, but current therapies, but nothing's been proven yet, and that's, I think, one of the things that the scientists have been really cautious of is to make sure that people aren't jumping the gun and taking things that people don't know work that could have potential side effects that people aren't ready for. So.
Right. So it's interesting here. I mean, one of the issues is just timing. Typically for, new vaccines or therapies, it takes years. What is the sense, just generally speaking, within the biotech/pharma space? Can that timetable be significantly compressed going forward to find some type of vaccine?
Yeah, actually, they are. They are saying 12 to 18 months. I actually spoke to the woman who led the development of the NIH vaccine, and they are saying 12 to 18 months for a vaccine, which is really aggressive, actually, because as you said, it usually takes years. The average vaccine development is something like 10 to 15 years. So that's moving pretty quickly. They went to first in human trials. She called it from sequencing to arm in 66 days. So
okay. That's extraordinary, but what's the cost? I mean, I got a measles quote here. A cost per dose is $21.22, but that's some medicine we've been dealing with for decades and decades and decades. Do we know what it's going to cost per treatment for COVID?
We don't, and that's a really good issue, especially amid all of this, the ongoing debate about drug pricing. And so, no, we don't know how much it's going to cost. There have been calls on Capitol Hill to make sure that it's affordable, especially since it was developed with, NIH money, that's taxpayer dollars. But I don't think we'll know until they're able to partner with a commercial company that actually puts it out on the market and prices it.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. Here on Medical Technology this morning, Paul. To me, it's just a mystery. It is. I get two stories. The doctors are telling me a year, 9 months, 18 months, or whatever, and the politicians are telling me weeks. And I'm like, right.
Yeah, I'm going with the former there, Tom. I mean, I think as the more we learn about this, the more we hear from the experts, it's something that initially is going to be dealt with simply by creating the safe distance and just kind of letting it run its course, and hopefully at the minimal impact. It's not going to be something that can be addressed with biotech or big pharma coming in with some type of therapy or vaccine. That might be, and that clearly could be for the longer term for this virus here. But in the near term, it's just trying to contain it.
Now with the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Paul, Tom, Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne, has tested positive for the coronavirus. The Prince's Clarence House office says the 71-year-old is self-isolating at a royal estate in Scotland. It says his wife, Camilla, has tested negative. The palace says Charles has been displaying mild symptoms, but otherwise remains in good health and has been working from home throughout the last few days as usual. The White House and Senate leaders reached a deal on a massive bailout of American businesses and individuals left reeling by the coronavirus outbreak. Bloomberg's Martin DeCarroll reports.
The marathon negotiations produced the largest economic stimulus measure in U.S. history, roughly $2 trillion. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it'll deliver relief to big business and Main Street.
Through hundreds of billions of dollars in emergency loans, so more small businesses can survive this.
Minority Leader Charles Schumer says it reflects Democratic priorities.
A Marshall Plan for public health workers and hospitals on the front lines, and putting workers first.
Most wage earners will get stimulus checks of up to $1,200. Unemployment checks will be fatter, too, and jobless benefits will be extended to so-called gig economy workers. In Washington, Martin DeCarroll, Bloomberg Radio.
The legislation will now move to the House. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony has a new date, November 7th. The show will air live on HBO from Cleveland. This year's ceremony will honor Depeche Mode, the Doobie Brothers, Whitney Houston, 9 Inch Nails, the Notorious B.I.G., and T-Rex. The ceremony was originally set for May 2nd, but postponed due to coronavirus concerns. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Michael Barr, thanks so much. And thanks to Jeannie Bauman for helping us out here from Bloomberg News on the medical technology issues of the moment. Paul, what do you see in the markets this morning? What's the equity observation you have?
Yeah, it's certainly mixed here. You have a big, strong move up at the Dow, up 238 points, yet the S&P is essentially flat. The NASDAQ's down a little bit. So a mixed market here, if that just historic move we had yesterday, Tom. And so, not surprisingly, see people just trying to stepping back here, trying to re-look relook at their positions, relook at their outlook here. So I think a little bit of stability here wouldn't be the worst thing. Having a few days of just some plus or minus 1% wouldn't be the worst thing, I think, for a lot of investors here. Just looking for a little bit of stability here and trying to get a sense of kind of discounting the next coming 2 or 3 weeks, if not months.
And we're going to go from news item to news item, and I really want to emphasize, folks, and let me frame it for you right now. It comes out every week, every Thursday, and it's not the world stops at 8:30, but, it's there, the jobless claim statistic. This time, Paul, it's more than there, and as Carl Weinberg just said, we really have no idea what we're going to see in terms of above a record 700,000 claims in 1 week.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly, and it's just a question of how ugly. And then I think, as you were raising earlier, Tom, one of the key questions is the duration of this impact on the economy.
I agree. And the duration starts with the medicine. We say good morning to the
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
3 is a magic number. 300 schemes to help bugs and bees, supporting environmental needs. 8,000 grants for local sports and performing arts get our support. 7 millionaires every week. The nation's on a winning streak. 30 million pounds to good causes every week. Who'd have thought it? These are magic numbers.
Your numbers make amazing happen. The National Lottery.
Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Then breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stock index futures are fluctuating after the best rally in over a decade as investors await details on the unprecedented government spending packages aimed at countering the hit from the pandemic. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures, they're little change. Dow futures up 253 now. NASDAQ futures are down 1.5. The DAX in Germany is down 0.9%. 10-year Treasury up 230 seconds, yield 0.83%. The yield on the 2-year 0.35%. NYMEX crude oil down 2.6% on 62 cents at $23.40 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1.2% on $18.80 at $16.44.30 an ounce. The euro 1.0824 against the dollar. British pound 1.1832 and the yen at 111.45. The VIX is at 63.26. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Very good. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that, Karen. It is a labor economy. It is an economy of jobless claims tomorrow. Some estimating 1 million, 1.5 million is the Bloomberg survey, 2 million, even 3 million, maybe not in 1 week, but spread out over 14 days, 21 days. These are numbers, folks, that no one has ever perceived. Academics, think about this. Pavlina Chernova is at Bard. She's professor of economics. And far more importantly, an important book coming out, The Case for a Job Guarantee. That's a controversial title, Professor, as well. With this legislation, are we any closer to a job guarantee?
Good morning, Tom and Paul. No, we are not close to a job guarantee, and I am looking at the provisions, and I actually don't see anything specifically targeted to the labor market. We have some emergency measures that I think are trying to stop the hemorrhage, and the good measures. But we need to keep a laser sharp focus on jobs.
Right. We have atomized our labor economy over X number of years. I've said this on the show, folks. On Labor Day, I always try to read some labor chapter in a book. I read Paul Samuelson, 1948, From Another Time and Place, on labor in America. I mean, it's gone, isn't it, Pavlina? I mean, there really is no labor representation. Am I right on that?
This is true. There's no strong labor representation, and we are putting labor on the back burner. And we will not come out of this moment without some bold, big programs to restore jobs and incomes. And we just can't think in the conventional ways. We're looking at potentially Q2 unemployment rates of 30% if we listen to the St. Louis Fed. That is greater than what we had seen in the Great Depression. And there is only one solution to a problem like this, and that is direct employment, bold, big public investment.
So, Pavlina, looking at the fiscal stimulus plan just emerging from Congress, what are some of the key highlights for you as it relates to getting people back to work?
What I am seeing is a lot of focus on income support, which is the right thing to do at this moment, some strengthening of unemployment insurance, and this one-time payment, which probably will go for rent and food for the month of April, but that is it. And unemployment insurance is not a pro-job creation policy. It's a policy that stops sort of the floor from, falling from underneath us. And so what we need is to start thinking about how to return jobs back. Once unemployment develops, it has this terrible, terrible way of self-perpetuating, because we tried this last time during the 2008 great financial crisis. We strengthened unemployment insurance. We could have done better, but it took us 10 years to bring unemployment down to its historic lows. So we cannot afford to wait this long, or potentially longer, unless we do some direct job creation.
So, Professor, a lot of Wall Street economists are scrambling to come out with GDP forecasts, and I think, many of them incorporate kind of a V-shaped recovery, a sharp decline in 2Q GDP followed by pretty, solid bounce back in Qs 3 and 4. How do you view how this might unfold?
Yeah, Paul, I think you're absolutely correct. All of these provisions right now are designed to patch us over for a couple of months. So whether these are loan guarantees, all of the various policies are for the short term under the assumption that people will happily return back to work. But that ship has sailed in some sense, because even if a lot of businesses reopen, we already have plenty of layoffs and loss of income, which will kind of ripple through the economy. And folks, even if they get a loan to patch them over for a couple of months, if the customers are not returning in big numbers, we will see the problems down the line.
Professor, one final question. It's too short a time to talk to you. We'd love to have you on again. Is the basic idea of an individualistic, almost Lockean America, and as somebody said brilliantly in an essay this week, this is a Hobbesian crisis. We've gone back to natural man and natural law and all that of another time and place. How do we recapture the collectivism of labor? I don't see any evidence the mood is out there.
You may be right, but I fear that the economic pain is ahead of us, And we will be once again engaged in this conversation. What did we do wrong? Could we have prepared better? Can we stabilize the foundations of the economy? And the foundations of the labor market, working people, we need good jobs and good incomes. And I hope that we start this conversation as soon as possible so we don't have to go through yet another very, very protracted downturn.
Pavlina Chernova, thank you so much with Bard today with a really out of consensus view there for so many on global Wall Street. I mean, Paul, it's just amazing the atomization that we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I think we're going to really get a stark number with those jobs numbers tomorrow, Tom. That's really going to jump out in front of people to show the impact is real, and then we're going to have these data points for the next several months at the very least.
Paul, I'm flabbergasted that from what I've read, I could be totally wrong on this, folks. And again, Dylan Matthews at Vox doing a great job of writing up the check in the mail part of the CARES Act, CARES. That's what it's called, folks, the CARES Act. Paul, I don't understand the idea that $1,200 to one of our listeners in Kansas is the same as $1,200 to one of our listeners outside Boston and Massachusetts. I just find that illogical.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom, and I think this is a good plan. It's a quick plan. Is it the ultimate ideal plan? No, but I think where most people came down is let's get something done now. Let's get capital out into the marketplace now. Let's get money into the hands of consumers now, and we'll deal with it maybe with some later plans.
Paul, what's so important here is with the phase outs of the $1,200 check, you and I get a case of Schaefer beer.
That's right, which is just fine. We'll make do.
That's what we got. It'll be hopefully chilled, if not that. I was talking to Karen Moscow. She's lobbying for a case of Schlitz. See if she can get the beer that made Milwaukee famous. We're going to get the markets open, folks. After what we saw yesterday, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it will not be like yesterday. Stay strong, folks. Another half hour of Bloomberg surveillance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Apply by the 31st of March for a chance to win your first year in halls. Visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
This is a vital update about coronavirus. To help save lives, stay at home.
Anyone can spread coronavirus. Only leave your home for the following reasons: to shop for basic necessities, to pick up medicine, to travel to work if you absolutely cannot work from home, to provide care to those who need it, or to exercise. Always stay 2 meters apart. Do not meet others outside your household, even friends and family. Stay home. Protect the NHS. Save lives.
Imagine winning 10 grand. Yes! With Set for Life, you could win 10 grand every month for 30 years. Get in! Amazing! Woo! Yes! Sweet! Unbelievable!
Play Thursday, and you could make every month amazing with Set for Life and the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures, and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, and the S&P 500 is higher at the open. It's up 0.25%, up 5 points at 2451. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 1.2%, or 231 points at 20,919. And the Nasdaq's down 0.1%, or 10 points at 7409. 10-year Treasury up 6/32, yield 0.82%. The yield on the 2-year 0.34%. NYMEX crude oil down 2.2% on 54 cents at 23.47 a barrel. COMEX gold down 1.3%, or $21.90 at 1641.40 an ounce. The euro 1.0823 against the dollar, and the yen 111.41. Tom and Paul.
Thank you so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate that. Again, we'll give you data checks for the day. David Wilson with us here on Bloomberg Radio with all sorts of transportation, individual stock stories like airlines doing better today. Right now, a gentleman who is expert at labor economics, and he has the ultimate accolade of a polarized Washington. He writes for the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, of course, has been iconic in his public support of Vice President Biden the last go-around. And Jared Bernstein joins us right now. He is a liberal who conservatives are compelled to read at each and every moment. Jared, wonderful to have you with us today. Can you explain the reticence of Senate Republicans to get this bill done? I mean, it seems like the compromise is supposed to benefit 1,100 pages of America, $2 trillion in all. Explain the Washington reticence to assist their electorate.
Yeah, I think I can do that. It took way too long for members of Congress to recognize urgency that was clear to any of us who've been watching markets and other economic indicators. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens in this kind of situation is that you have the Christmas tree problem. Members of Congress see a big bill coming down the pike that has to pass, and they think they have leverage to put stuff on it that doesn't belong there. I will say, though, that for this Congress, it looks like they did ultimately act pretty quickly, and the deal should be perhaps done later today. The Senate and the White House are in agreement. Now it's all about the House, and what I'm hearing on the ground is that the House is going to join on pretty quickly.
So, Jared, it's interesting here. Do you think this deal, $2 trillion, obviously a huge number, really jumps out at people? Is it enough, or do you think this is just the first in a series of fiscal stimulus plans that will be needed to keep this economy, from going too far south?
It is the largest stimulus I believe we've ever heard of. It's 10% of GDP, and yes, we will definitely need more trips to the well. This is actually the third trip. There's been two other stimulus bills so far. The first one was a narrow one directed at health crisis. The second one was a small stimulus. This is a big stimulus, but we're going to need more trips to the well. There are at least two things left out of this bill. First of all, it has nothing on state fiscal relief. That turns out to be critically important. It was important last time in a shallower downturn. And secondly, the bill has just one-time payments to households. Those are going to be very useful, but I think we'll have to do more than one round of that.
So, Jared, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, your GDP crystal ball. How do you think GDP is going to play out over the next several quarters? I think many on Wall Street are looking for a V-type. Some are looking for a U-type of recovery, and some are just flat out saying this is an L-type recovery, and we'll get back to you whether, this thing turns up.
Well, here's how I would explain that. You think of the V or the U or the L as having two parts, one part down and one part either up or sideways. The down part economists can explain to you, and I will. The up part epidemiologists can explain to you, and they will. Or at least they will when they have the data. The down part is baked in the cake, and it's going to be double digits, and it's probably happening as we speak. That is a double-digit GDP decline with a negative handle. And then the up part, whether it's a V, is a matter of when containment occurs. No question there will be lots of pent-up demand. Airplane trips and conferences, many will be rescheduled. People will go on vacations and back to restaurants. So I think Trump is correct when he says there's pent-up demand. The question is, how intact will the economy be on the other side of this such that it can absorb and reflect that demand?
I mean, Jared, this is all well and great, but I want you to explain. I want you to go all Dean Baker on me right now. And so there's a whole left feeling that, life will go on, and there's a conservative ethos, which many of our listeners and viewers share. There's this conservative ethos, oh no, we're giving it away. Isn't anything we spent now paid back in ongoing GDP over quarters and indeed years? I mean, we're going to get the money back eventually, right?
Yes, and I think the notion that you can somehow pivot from where we are now to a better economy by Easter is completely nonsense. I mean, as I've said, the second quarter is a deep recession baked in the cake. That's not just me, that's everybody. And the idea that you can punt on containment efforts only means a much larger economic problem down the road. So, yeah, I think we're going to have to just do what the health experts are telling us and recognize and keep that. The key to your question, Tom, is making sure that we have an economy that can bounce back at the other side of this. That's why the $800+ billion in this bill we're talking about to help preserve small and large businesses is very important.
But I remember, this is really important, folks. At AEA in 2009, the American Economic Association, Olivier Blanchard, the giant of French economics, working with the IMF, working out at MIT, Professor Blanchard got up, Jared, and he put up a chart and he said, there's been a real crash, but here's the run rate to get back, and someday we'll get back. I mean, those laws are still in place. If we spend 10% of GDP now and 7% of GDP in 8 weeks or 8 months, whatever, we're going to get it back down the road, right?
Yes, right. I totally agree with you. But here's the thing you have to appreciate. I'm sure you do. You think medium and long term. Sounds like you're thinking long term. Politicians think in very, very short term. So when you're talking about Trump, who feels like and I think correctly feels like his electoral prospects are very much damaged by what's going on, he's thinking in terms of weeks, not 7-8 years, to make up an output gap that, yes, eventually we'll make up.
So, Jared, I guess one of the next issues is, as we parse through what's coming out of Congress right now in terms of the $2 trillion fiscal stimulus plan, what does Congress need to focus on next, do you think, from a stimulus perspective?
Well, that's a great question. A couple of things. First of all, state fiscal relief is essential, and it's not in this bill. American states have to balance their budgets, and given the demands on their unemployment insurance system, they're going to be facing it big time. Secondly, there will need to be another trip to the well to help support households who are losing paychecks week by week. And also, it's important to note that in this bill, it is true that low-income households are eligible for these checks, but many of them don't file federal tax returns just because their income isn't high enough, and that means that they won't get those checks unless they file. That's the way the thing is set up. So they're going to need to file in order to get their checks.
Jared Bernstein, thank you so much for the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Can't say enough about his work. Really compelling reading always from Professor Bernstein and his team. Paul, just extraordinary the moment we're living in. I mean, you and I couldn't imagine this. Remember long ago and far away where Valentine's Day, our biggest stress point was Pharaoh was apoplectic and had to be medicated because he paid $80 for a dozen roses that died.
Yeah, exactly right. Those days seem long gone. But it's interesting. Finally, we got something out of Washington, Tom, some stimulus. We had the Federal Reserve start off the week with a really aggressive move.
Yeah, well said.
And that it was certainly important. Then we needed Congress to act a little bit slower than maybe the markets would have liked. But here we are with the $2 trillion. And that's obviously a monstrous number. But it, again, as Jared was just suggesting, it might just be the first trip to the well.
Yeah, and again, folks, those percentages, and these are real rough, don't quote me on them, but the United Kingdom with a 4% of GDP effort, and then the first publication here was a 5-ish% of our gross domestic product. And then now, as you just heard Professor Bernstein say, we get out to 10% of GDP. And Dave Wilson, of course, saying there with a direct aid of loans and grants to the aviation industry, the transportation industry as well. We need a news update in New York. Here is Michael Barr.
Paul, Tom, the White House and Senate leaders of both parties have struck an agreement on a sweeping $2 trillion measure to aid workers, businesses, and a healthcare system strained by the rapidly spreading coronavirus outbreak. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
It will deliver historic relief to Main Street America through hundreds of billions of dollars in emergency loans so more small businesses can survive this and keep paying their workers.
Britain's Prince Charles has tested positive for COVID-19. California authorities say a 17-year-old boy who tested positive for the coronavirus has died, but it's not yet clear whether the virus was to blame. Lancaster's mayor says that the boy died from septic shock, which can occur as a reaction to infection. A tidal wave of jobless Americans is swamping the state-run unemployment insurance system. Bloomberg's Martin DeCarroll reports.
Unemployment websites are crashing, the jobless are getting frustrated with long hold times, and the problem is only beginning. States could soon exhaust their unemployment reserve funds. U.S. Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia tells Bloomberg News some federal help is coming.
A large amount of money for unemployment insurance and loans for employers on the understanding that they will keep their employees on payroll.
Jobless claims could reach as high as 3 million this week alone, according to S&P Global Ratings. And a study by economists at the W.E. Upjohn Institute says 21 states and territories could see their reserve funds go into the red if there's a severe recession. In Washington, Martin DeCarroll, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom, Paul?
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Do want to note, and this is inside baseball, but Argentinian peso, which has been sort of pegged, fixed, managed at 62 peso per dollar, is weaker today. We'll have to watch that. With the equity markets actually doing much better here. We are open with the Dow up 687, 21,385 on the Dow. SPX up a solid 49 points, 2% move there. 24.95 on the Standard & Poor's 500. Big lift, Paul, to the aviation industry. Yeah. This is a blended statement, up 20%, I guess is how I would put the... Why didn't you tell me to buy the aviation stocks two days ago?
Yeah, it's funny. I live fairly close to Newark Airport, and the traffic is decidedly down here in terms of air traffic, but the stocks are up here, Tom. Just to give you a couple of names, American Airlines up 16%, Delta up 30%, United up 38%, so some big moves, so just some extraordinary moves there in the airline sector, getting some benefit from this federal fiscal stimulus plan here. So, and they certainly need it, as most of the air traffic has been essentially grounded.
Does any of that get to labor? I mean, you see Emirates and Dubai shut down 100% and, really strong layoffs among these airlines. Does any of that monies get to their staff?
We certainly hope so. I mean, that's clearly what a lot of folks in Congress were hoping for. Let's get this money to the world.
Luxury. While the fashion industry has a long history of providing to worthy causes such as AIDS relief, it's usually via galas and donations. Now it's in their factories. Luxury fashion conglomerate Kering said it would switch to producing surgical masks at the French workshops of its Balenciaga and Saint Laurent brands as the country ramps up its efforts to contain the coronavirus. Luxury giant LVMH has switched to producing sanitizing hand gels in factories that normally make its Christian Dior and Givenchy cosmetics and perfumes. Airbus bought 2 million masks from Europe to China, and Gucci, Kering's largest brand, is seeking approval from health authorities in Italy to produce more than 1 million surgical masks. In the U.S., sewing circles and hobbyists are joining the call to help. New York fashion designer Christian Siriano showed mask prototypes on Instagram, while in a World War II-like manufacturing push, the American Apparel and Footwear Association said some members' production lines are being converted now. Amanda O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that so in 10 years we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
The happy family of 3 were about to welcome a new member. That's right, they were finally getting a dog.
Buy on eBay, dog bed from £12.
First, they had to make a few adjustments.
Sell white rug.
And prepare the kids for the reality of owning a pet.
Buy biodegradable poop bags from under £6.
Everyone instantly fell in love with Little Rocky. Unfortunately, Little Rocky fell in love with a cushion. Buy, sell, eBay.
Delivery costs may apply.
A change is coming. Millions of people across the UK are realising that if their broadband's out of contract, they could be out of pocket. So it's time to switch and save with Vodafone Superfast Broadband for £22.95 a month. Join the Great British Broadband switch today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
18-month contract subject to credit check. Superfast 1, 73% of customers receive sync speeds above 35 megabits per second. Source Ofcom fairer pricing. Price may change during your contract. See vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
The thing that I would say to anybody that was thinking about a job in social care is go for it. I'm Georgia. I love social care because you never know what each day will bring. It's emotional sometimes, highs and lows, but no 2 days are the same. I love the work, yeah. It makes me feel really good as a person. We make people smile every day.
If you want to make a difference to your life, care for someone else's, visit everydaysdifferent.com to find jobs in adult social care.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and stocks are on the rise this morning. The S&P 500 up 1.1%, up 26 points at 2472. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 2.2%, up 452 points. It's at 21,152. And the NASDAQ is up 0.6% or 44 points at 7461. 10-year Treasury up 9/32, the yield 0.81%. The yield on the 2-year is at 0.34%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.4% or 34 cents at $23.67 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1.2% or $19.40 at $16.4430 an ounce. The euro 1.0808 against the dollar. The yen is at 111.50. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, again, thank you so much for those data checks. Important always, and particularly in the volatility that we're seeing, extraordinary. And again, folks, to remember the volatility was 12, 11, low, average 20. 30 was considered whoa. We've been up at 60 and 70 and 80 as well. Right now joining us, Cameron Kreis, like Lukawa, when he turns on his Bloomberg Staten Island dims, he's got that much power in the Bloomberg terminal, and he joins us today. Cameron, everybody's going to talk about a select group of people, investors that got it right and are winning big. And there's a lot of other people that are losing big over the last 2-3 weeks. How bad's the carnage? I mean, from where you sit with all the reports you get, how bad have the losses been?
Well, I should preface my remarks by saying I'm not privy to the investment performance of anyone. I've got no intensity of their reports. Woe is me. Listen, I think it ultimately depends on the strategy you're running. I mean, clearly short sellers are enjoying themselves tremendously at the moment. Relative value fixed income traders, much less so. Vol sellers, much less so. I mean, it's one of these things where we're not even at the end of the month yet. So all we're getting is sort of anecdotes. Right. And there's certainly been a number of anecdotes of specific instances of specific funds or specific strategies that have come under significant stress. And broadly speaking, they all come in, would generally come in the category of vol selling, whether it's literally selling VIX or whether it's something like fixed income relative value, where you're implicitly short volatility by relying on a stable relationship between,
Okay, well, explain. Can they recover? Do they have the time in this crisis to recover, or do they just shut down? Which is it?
A number of them will be shutting down, either individual funds or individual pods or portfolio managers at various funds. I'm not going to name any names, but there's been some news reports of high-profile funds that have shuttered some aspects of their strategies. I mean, you can see it more generally, I think, in, say, stuff like mortgage REITs, where there's been significant duress in certainly over the last couple of weeks in terms of the pricing of the underlying securities, of the repo market for these securities. There's a lot of leverage. Any of these institutions that has realized losses by deleveraging at inopportune times, well, that's a permanent destruction of book value that's not going to come back.
And Paul Sweeney, I want to explain here, Paul. I think it's so important that it is a long-standing Bloomberg surveillance mandate. Folks, we don't trend in gossip, and Mr. Kreis is correct. We will wait for Bloomberg Finance to report any damages to global Wall Street, and then we'll talk about it. We don't do the rumor bit.
We don't do the rumor bit, absolutely. Cameron, we're seeing, we saw that just historic bounce back yesterday in the equity market, seeing a little bit of confirmation of that today. When you talk to folks in the market, how are they viewing kind of what we've been seeing the past couple of days? Is this, a sign that perhaps there's some capitulation, or is this just kind of a bounce within the context of a greater bear market?
I think it's split. Certainly more tactical punters, I think, have been viewing this as a tactical bounce, or a tradable bounce, shall we say. Everyone on the street's talking about this sort of the month-end rebalancing. And if we can follow through today from yesterday's gains, that will be some sign, perhaps, that that's materializing. I've had a few people come at me and say, well, they're going to reopen everything at Easter and everything is going to be wonderful. So there is a cohort that's sort of looking for an optimistic scenario. I think probably the more nuanced attitude, and maybe I'm just projecting my own views here, is that this is going to be a long game, and it's not going to be a V-shaped bounce from yesterday's low or Monday's low straight into new highs.
Yeah, Cameron, a lot of what I've been reading and hearing is saying don't necessarily look at the equity markets to get a sense of kind of the stress in the market or the de-stressing of the market. Look at the credit spreads. What are you seeing in the credit markets?
Yeah, well, credit is improving somewhat, and that's largely a function, I think, of the Fed programs that we've had announced. Certainly, investment grade has taken a great deal of comfort from some of the programs. The fact that the Fed is going to be entering that market for the first time, and perhaps that has bled through a little bit into high yield. But we should recognize that a stabilization and improvement of credit is a necessary but not sufficient condition for an ultimate bottoming of the equity market. The peak in sort of investment grade spreads in 2008 came, I think, in November, and the equity market didn't bottom until March of the following year. So we might be on an accelerated timeline here, given the speed of the responses. But we have to acknowledge that it's still a timeline. It's not going to be an instantaneous, get out of jail free card after a week type of thing.
Cameron Kreis, it's necessary and sufficient that we say goodbye because we're out of time. Cameron Kreis, thank you so much with Bloomberg News and Bloomberg Markets. Just terrific perspective there. His writings, folks, are very sophisticated. To be honest, Paul, like half of what he writes about, I have no clue what he's talking about.
But he always sums it up at the end of his notes with, "Okay, now I got it."
Yeah, but I don't even get to that last paragraph as well. We need to say thank you, folks, to our team. It has been extraordinary, led by the dog barking in the back. Let me get the official Bloomberg dog toy here. This does it there it is, right there. And I'm going to give it the Bloomberg toss from right field at Fenway Park to keep Vetville happy. We need to say thank you to all of our people just killing themselves to make this go. Some of them remote, a very select few at our different headquarters worldwide, including Colin of the Twins, Tanya Chen really doing yeoman's duty in television today. Paul, are you and Lisa together, Paul, in the next hour? I don't even know.
We are together. We have 2 hours coming up with Lisa Abramowitz and myself, so we will push this conversation forward, Tom, with lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about here, that historic legislation. And here in Manhattan, folks, I'll tell you, you've seen those maps worldwide of the density of cases here. We say good morning to all in the medical community. Special thanks to Peter Hotez of Baylor University, who helped us immensely this morning on this continuing crisis. Please stay tuned through the day to Bloomberg Radio.
All units on tactical.
Boys, just pick a track. I'm trying to drive.
Sorry. Your mate's more likely to crash with passengers in the car, so don't drive him to distraction. Let him mate concentrate.
The happy family of 3 were about to welcome a new member. That's right, they were finally getting a dog.
Buy on eBay, dog bed from £12.
First, they had to make a few adjustments.
Sell white rug.
And prepare the kids for the reality of owning a pet.
Buy biodegradable poop bags from under £6.
Everyone instantly fell in love with Little Rocky. Unfortunately, Little Rocky fell in love with a cushion. Buy, sell, eBay.
Delivery costs may apply.
It's Tune In Sports on this day, March 25th, 1972. UCLA men's basketball wins its 6th consecutive national basketball title.
UCLA has won its 6th consecutive NCAA basketball championship, and pandemonium reigns as delirious UCLA players are congratulated by their Florida State rivals as well as their fans.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, click on Sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, we're taking a deep look
at the way the coronavirus pandemic has rippled through every aspect of our lives, seemingly in a matter of days and weeks. Whether you're working from home, not working, or have to go to work, COVID-19 has changed everything. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
In a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seizechange.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks were mixed at the open, but have since turned higher as investors await more details on that economic rescue package. And after the big surge of optimism yesterday on Wall Street, Boeing, Nike, and Apple were helping the Dow this morning. That massive stimulus package negotiated between the White House and congressional leaders early this morning is an unprecedented $2 trillion aid package designed to help the public and the economy rebound from the coronavirus pandemic. The bill provides direct help to citizens, businesses, hospitals, and state and local governments. The Senate vote may come as soon as today, and it needs to be passed by the House as well. Nike reported stronger than expected earnings in its latest quarter, boosting optimism that it can hold its own during the pandemic. The results don't provide a complete picture yet, but Nike was one of the first major brands to take quick action in the face of the pandemic in China when it closed all of its stores there last month. And crude oil is down this morning, lower by about 1.7%, just under $24 a barrel. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
They don't just talk to the most important people.
Can you give us your broad sense of the main driver behind the latest weakness?
They talk with the most interesting people.
When you talk to your clients, are they taking this seriously?
Lisa Abramowitz.
What's going to be the main driver of growth?
Paul Sweeney.
What did you take away from those Amazon numbers last night?
Bloomberg Markets.
Is it as ominous this time around?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
Only buy IPO stock that you can't get. If you can get it, it's probably a dog you don't want it.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning from New York City and parts in New Jersey. I believe we are broadcasting live. Coming up, we're going to talk about the markets, whether or not we can get a first 2 consecutive day gain since February 12th. Plus, we'll dig into the $2 trillion record stimulus that the Senate and White House have agreed upon. Let's get the numbers now. Charlie Pellet has that for us. Charlie.
All right, thank you very much. We've got you covered, Lisa Abramowitz. Once again, good morning. We have got the Dow higher, S&P, NASDAQ. They are both lower right now. And this report is brought to you by Withum, a forward-thinking, technology-driven advisory and accounting firm helping clients be in a position of strength in today's modern business landscape. Visit Withum.com to learn more. Well, here's where we stand. As I mentioned, we've got the Dow higher, up by 39 points right now. That is a gain of 0.2%. S&P slumping 16, opened higher but lower now, down 0.7%. NASDAQ retreating after yesterday's surge, down 71 points for the NASDAQ Composite Index. That is a drop right now of just about 0.9%. Investors, meanwhile, looking for their first back-to-back gain since the coronavirus crisis began, as investors await details on the unprecedented government spending packages aimed at countering the hit from the pandemic. Chris Verone is head of technical analysis at Strategas Research Partners. He was our guest this morning on Bloomberg Surveillance.
Even though the market has grinded lower over the last 4 or 5 days, you've actually had high beta stocks outperform low beta stocks by a fairly significant margin. So when you look at the risk-seeking behavior that often accompanies a rally, we've actually started to see that over the last 4 or 5 days, even before the market bottomed.
Right now, the 10-year up 12.30 seconds with a yield of 0.80%. Gold is down 1.3%, $16.11 the ounce. Sam West Texas Intermediate crude down 2.2% at $23.48. We are keeping an eye on target shares, down now by just about 7.7%. This headline: German Parliament backing a 750 billion euro crisis spending package. Developing story there out of Germany. We'll have more on that for you. Target, though, as I mentioned, it is plunging today, down 8% now after dumping its full-year sales and profit forecast that it gave just 3 weeks ago, even as sales in March have soared, underscoring the difficulty that retailers are facing in navigating the unfolding coronavirus crisis. We've got you covered here on Bloomberg Radio. A lot of us working from home, but the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all lower right now. The Dow just turning lower by 11, down 0.1%. Gold down 1.4%, $16.10 the ounce. Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, down 2.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. After opening higher here initially, we have the stocks rolling off just a little bit here, as Charlie was just reporting. To get a sense of where the action is in the equity markets here, we turn to Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor. Dave, what are you looking at?
Well, Paul, I mean, we're seeing now is fairly broad-based when it comes to the main industry groups in the S&P 500. Almost all of the 11 groups are lower at this point. The one holdout is the industrial stocks, and they're barely higher. Their index up just 0.1%. And it really does look like after sort of the initial optimism about the rescue package that people are taking a step back and saying, well, where does business go in the interim as these measures are passed and then rolled out? So, they're really...
Dave, is that really what people are sort of expressing skepticism about, or is this partly also that the bill hasn't passed yet, that still it could be hung up by the House, which is sort of unclear at this point?
Well, there is that piece of it, no question. It's one thing to come to a deal, as the White House and the Senate have done. It's another to carry that through and then to see the programs implemented and, beyond in terms of, what companies are facing. I mean, there are clearly a couple of standouts in today's trading, and you can argue that to some extent they're company-specific stories as much as broader market stories. Boeing and Nike. I mean, you've got Boeing shares leading the S&P 500 up 11.5%. And the story there is they're anticipating that they can get 737 MAX jet production restarted by May, according to Reuters. Anyway, they had some unnamed people familiar with the matter telling them as much. And then there's Nike, which was out with results late yesterday for their fiscal third quarter that went over well. I mean, you had revenue beating the average analyst estimate in the Bloomberg survey by the most in 8.5 years, and earnings pretty much in line with projections, depending on how you count them. And that stock's up 10%. They're figuring out how to deal with the fact that more people are staying at home. In the latest quarter, digital sales up 36%. A lot of that tied into a mobile app that they've introduced in China that has 5 million users already. They're following that strategy in the U.S. as people start to stay home because of the coronavirus. So, Nike's figuring out how to deal with things as they are.
So, Dave, I was looking at the airline stocks. They are up this morning, looking at American up about 5 or 6%, but they were up much, much higher in the pre-market. But they're certainly going to be beneficiaries with this stimulus package.
Well, they are. And the thing is, though, the industry didn't quite get what they wanted, and you can argue whether they deserved, grants as opposed to loans and loan guarantees, which is what emerged from the back and forth between the White House and the Senate. You're talking about $50 billion of financial support for the passenger airlines, another $8 billion for cargo carriers. So it's a plus that you're right. I mean, you were seeing 10% plus gains in the carriers in early trading, and now the best performance at the moment, at least, belongs to American, which is up about 5%. So, clearly people have taken another look and said, well, maybe the run-up we've seen, which really started yesterday, is a bit too much at this point.
Dave, I want to go back to a stock that you were talking about earlier, Target. They withdrew their guidance, basically saying the range of outcomes was just too great. Also halting buybacks. This not unusual. We're hearing these types of announcements out of a lot of companies. But some of the quotes, some of the commentary from the CEO really stark. It's difficult to provide guidance with any precision in this environment. America is largely out of business. There's no playbook, and we are writing the script each and every day. This is CEO Brian Cornell. I'm struggling to understand, Target is being sort of punished as a result of this, the shares down significantly. But how much is this the story for every company? I mean, this is Target. They should actually be doing better than most right now because people are actually going to those staples.
Well, they are. And the thing is, keeping those staples on the shelves comes at a cost. They're talking about $300 million in additional cost to keep the shelves stocked with things like toilet paper and whatever people are buying at this point at Target and other retailers. I mean, yeah, it's an industry issue, and it's clear the companies that sell the basics are the winners at this point in terms of what people are willing to spend money on. Yet that comes with its own challenges as well, and it's showing up in terms of how Target's doing this quarter.
Looking at the cruise lines, Charlie, a little bit of a bounce back today, kind of a mix, but that's going to be a long haul for that industry.
Oh, no question. And Carnival, down at the moment, and they've been the one the last few days that perhaps has struggled the most. Norwegian has been the biggest winner lately because they've fallen the most in this quarter. So stock's up 6.5%. So there's your sort of mixed performance. Royal Caribbean's higher as well. But all three stocks down more than 70% for the quarter. And it really does show you what they face in terms of rebuilding their business as the coronavirus basically shuts it down.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your thoughts, getting some color on what's going on here in the markets in this first 38 minutes or so of trading. Again, kind of a mixed look to the market, a little bit weaker here. S&P down 20 points, the Dow down 2 points, and the NASDAQ down 97 points. The NASDAQ had been, kind of been outperforming over the last week or so, kind of giving back a little bit of that performance here.
Paul.
So. Yeah.
We'll just say it'll be a victory if it isn't up 7% or down 7%.
Yes, right. A little bit of stability. Right now, let's head down to Washington for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan, what do you have?
Well, Paul, the Senate is set to vote this afternoon on that unprecedented nearly $2 trillion stimulus package that was agreed to last night to try to contain the economic and health impacts of the novel coronavirus. As we await the text of that legislation, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell touted the deal last night.
It will rush new resources onto the front lines of our nation's healthcare fight, and it will inject trillions of dollars of cash into the economy as fast as possible.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi put out a statement saying the bill moves a great deal closer to America's workers. She says Democrats will review it to determine their next steps. Meantime, in Europe, German Chancellor Angela Merkel's government has secured emergency spending, a 750 billion euro crisis spending package. Globally, more than 435,000 people have been infected with the coronavirus. More than 19,000 have died. Spain has now overtaken China in the overall number of deaths. It is now second only to Italy. Here in the U.S., medical experts say it's tough to tell whether we're flattening the curve. Dr. Josh Sharfstein is with the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health.